I'm going to show you one easy test that will help you understand exactly what you need to do to start fixing your posture. Now, the way that our body is oriented in its static posture is a representation of how our bones are obviously oriented. And if I am in a position of lots of anterior pelvic tilt, or I'm in a position where I have posterior pelvic tilt, that is going to alter the spine curves of my entire spine. And therefore, I'm going to have other joints be in positions that can only access certain ranges of motion as a result of that overall spine, rib cage, and pelvis position. Here's what I want you to do. Grab both your shoulder internal and external rotation measurement. It's really easy to do. All you have to do is lie on your back and get your elbow directly out from your shoulder and keep the back of your shoulder passively flat against the ground. Don't shove it back there, just let it hang out there. And then you're going to let your arm come forward into internal rotation, stopping once you hit resistance, you feel like you need to push through, or you feel like your shoulder is gonna pop forward, and then that's gonna give you compensatory range of motion. For shoulder external rotation, just go backwards and stop once you hit resistance or some tightness on the back side of your shoulder, or you feel like your ribs are going to extend. Now, I want you to compare them together. You're going to be better at one or the other, and that's going to give us a lot of insight into how your trunk is oriented and what you need to do to start to improve your posture and reduce tightness within your body. If your shoulder internal rotation is noticeably better than your shoulder external rotation, then chances are your rib cage is oriented into this downward position and your shoulders are a little bit more rolled forward, and you probably have some degree of forward head posture. Do you remember that I said that on these assessments, when you're doing the shoulder internal rotation, you don't want to get to the point where your shoulder pops forward, because this is the compensation for you to get more range of motion. Well, if you're constantly in this position, then it's going to be easy for you to fake your internal rotation. Now, this is a gradient, so it's important to know that not everyone will present extremely like this visually. Now, some people will very obviously look like they have this presentation. Other people won't, but they will still have those strategies and compressive strategies on the front side of their rib cage. It just won't be very visually obvious because they might have additional strategies built on top of that. But nonetheless, because you have more shoulder internal rotation, it's still a representation of where your problem is. So if I were to collapse my sternum down like this and make everything on the front side of my rib cage pretty tight, that's going to pull my shoulder into compensatory internal rotation. That is going to limit my ability for me to move into genuine external rotation. So those of you who have better shoulder internal and quite a bit worse shoulder external rotation, that's a representation of exactly what I'm describing right here. Therefore, in order to improve what's going on here, we want to do things that help open up the front side of our body. Muscles that pull our shoulders forward into a compensatorily internally rotated position are our pecs and our lats. Now, traditionally, people try to open up these muscles and stretch them out, but there's a huge missing component that a lot of people don't talk about, and that is the ability to expand the front ribs. Normally, when we inhale, we should get some degree of expansion of the front side of our rib cage, and if I have tightness of muscles pulling me into this position, I'm not going to be able to do that very well. So a huge component of getting long-term results here is being able to educate our body to open up this space. We can stretch out our pecs and lats all day long, but honestly, they are secondary consequence to a rib cage, which is the primary influence here and the primary problem. If we can get the rib cage in a better position and open up this space, then we're gonna have thousands of repetitions every single day of being able to open up our chest rather than just stretching those muscles for a couple of minutes every day and hoping for the best. I would rather educate our body how to actually open the space up and close it as it needs to throughout the day. Here's 2 exercises you can do for that. To start for this, we're going to be in a hook-lying position where we're on our back and we have a pillow underneath our back. And the pillow is starting at the bottom of our pelvis right here, and it's ending just at our head. So our neck is going to be slightly supported, but our head's going to be off of it. So it needs to be just a couple of inches thick, not much more than that, but enough to give us some elevation off of the ground, because that's going to help us open up our chest. Now, it's very important here that we have our head in the proper position. We need to have our chin directly up at the ceiling. We don't want it to be too low, and we don't want it to be too high. So the pillow needs to be the right height, or that object that you're on, to allow the chin to be directly at the ceiling. So we're gonna start by bringing these elbows out to shoulder height and then just dropping them and relaxing them on the ground. If you can't get them all the way on the ground relaxed, that's okay. We'll talk about some modifications in a second. But basically, you should be able to do that without these low ribs flaring excessively. You're gonna have a little flare, that's okay, but if you feel like you can't get your arms in that position without a ton of extension occurring as a result of that, then we need to add in some modifications and support. That's coming in a second. So we're here, nice and chill, everything's relaxed. You shouldn't have any muscular tension in your body whatsoever. We're gonna initiate this by doing a little bit of a posterior pelvic tilt. So all Trevor's gonna do is just slightly tuck his hips underneath him, just a tiny, tiny bit. And that'll help him get less rib flare right here. So he can imagine doing this by just putting a little bit of pressure through the floor and squeezing his glutes just a little bit. Okay, now what we're gonna do is a nice, soft, long exhale through the mouth, side out. For about 5 to 10 seconds until you feel your side abs engage. Try to minimize the contribution from your six-pack rectus abs. The softer and longer the exhale, the more you're going to get your side abs and the less you're gonna get your six-pack, because the six-pack will crunch you down and we don't want that. We want the side abs to work to bring the ribs down. And then at the end of that exhale, close your mouth, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, and maintain a very slight amount of that contraction in your side abs as you inhale very slowly and silently through the nose for about 3 to 5 seconds. The key here is, can you keep your neck 100% relaxed? That's really your primary concern here. Never, ever, ever feel your neck. If you do, you're inhaling too hard or for too long. So again, let's recap. Nice exhale, maintaining that pelvic tilt, side out 5 to 10 seconds. As a result of that exhale, you're going to feel a little bit of side abs. Maintain that very slightly. As you inhale through the nose, you're gonna feel your chest open up super nicely, and your neck is gonna stay relaxed. If you're struggling with too much tension or discomfort with your humerus back into external rotation, what you can do is get in that same position, but just give yourself some elevation. We have yoga blocks here. You could use towels rolled up, you could use pillows, doesn't really matter, whatever makes you comfortable. And if that's even too much, then you can go boom, right here, boom, right there, and then you can just chill in that position, whatever works for you. The goal is zero tension whatsoever. What we're gonna do here is get in a door frame, or we can use a squat rack, whatever works, so that way we can hook our fingers completely around something nice and comfortably. So usually one of those two things is gonna be best here. We're gonna start in a parallel stance, hip width apart with the toes straight ahead, and we need to make sure that we get a thumbs down grip, perfectly shoulder level. So not too high, not too low, straight out from our shoulder, nice and relaxed straight arm. What we're gonna do now is take a slight step back with the right leg, just so the toes are in line with the heel on the front foot, and we're gonna stay heavy on the left foot. Now, we're going to round our back, flex our back. The lat extends our back, so we want to create length by rounding the entire back, even the low back, to a little posterior pelvic tilt. Okay, now, this is the most important thing, and this is where most people are gonna screw it up. Keeping that rounded back, just subtly turn into it, just a little bit, and drop this left shoulder. Right there is all you need, all you need. And you're gonna feel a nice, but not overly intense stretch on that lat. And now you're gonna exhale through your mouth. Nice long sighing exhale, not but for 5 to 10 seconds. And you're gonna feel those left side abs engage, or the opposite side of the side you're stretching, because this side is more closed off now. Maintain that slight side ab engagement at the end of that exhale, and then close your mouth, inhale through your nose, and feel this stretch out even more. 5-second silent inhale. So we're not trying to go really hard, we're just trying to ease our way into this. So again, very moderate lat stretch, little bit of a turn, keeping the back rounded the whole time. Exhale nice and long for 5 to 10 seconds until you feel your side abs on the opposite side. Hold that. Inhale through your nose silently. I should not hear you inhale, but I should hear you exhale. It's also important not to forget about the role of the pelvis. Because if our pelvis is in a position that's pushing our lumbar spine into a given orientation, then there's no way that's not significantly affecting what's happening up here. So this video is focusing on this area, but we can't forget about this or else we're not going to see long-term benefit. And if you want some exercises that help improve the position and the relationship of the rib cage to the pelvis in all areas of the spine, you can check out some other content I have on that I'll link down below, but also my beginner body restoration program, which addresses all of these things, takes all of this stuff into account and gives easy exercises for people of all levels to address common movement and postural problems. Now, let's say you had better shoulder external than internal rotation. If this is the case, then chances are you have a lot of compression or tightness of the backside of your rib cage and muscles that are on that location, such as your rhomboids and your traps. When this is the case, there's a lot of extension tone within the body. Now, again, some people are visually going to present with a flatter spine. Other people are not because they have additional compensatory strategies. But if their shoulder presents with these ranges of motion, then it's likely that this is where their problem primarily is, and this is where they need to start. And do you also remember what I said about not letting your ribs flare for shoulder external rotation? Well, that is the compensation for you to get more range of motion. If you're constantly in this position, then you can fake good shoulder external rotation all day long, but your shoulder internal rotation won't be so good. So what we need to do is create elongation of the back and really open up the backside of the rib cage. We're gonna get in this seated position, obviously, but we have a step underneath Trevor because that's what's allowing him to keep his whole foot flat, but still get around a 90-degree bend at both his knees and his hips. So if your chair allows you to do that, great, stick with it. But regardless, you need to be able to feel your sit bones on both sides throughout the duration of this exercise. So those little bony protrusions in each butt cheek, make sure you're feeling relatively even contact with those while you go through this. We're gonna take that pillow, fold it in half so it's about that thick, which is what you want, and we're gonna wedge it in between our lowest ribs and the top of our thighs right there. And now what we're gonna do is take our arms over them, and we're going to get in this position where we have a bent elbow, palms facing us, and now we're gonna reach and protract forward. So we are going to bend forward a little bit, and that's okay because the goal of this exercise is to open up our backs. So holding that position right there, keeping your whole foot flat on both sides, feeling your sit bones a bit, we're going to exhale through our mouth. Nice and soft and long. And at the end of that exhale, sighing it out, we're gonna feel a little bit of side abs engage. And you're gonna slightly maintain that. The pillow is there to help you do that. And then softly and silently inhale through your nose for about 5 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds, depending on how comfortable you can be. And then exhale again. Keep working through that for about 5 breaths. Some things to keep in mind here is that we want our head to be in a neutral position. So it shouldn't be shoved far forward or retreated back. We want it to be that we're looking somewhat in between our hands, straight ahead right there. And that will ensure we're in a pretty good neck position. And the other thing is that people, despite this being a flexion-based exercise, will want to sit up when they inhale. That's you trying to breathe into your belly and extend. So we're trying to get your back to relax. We're trying to open up your ribs in the back. So maintain that posture right there. It's actually a little bit better to be a little bit more slouched than extended. We can do other drills to open up your front ribs, but the purpose of this is to open up your back ribs. What we're gonna do here is get a ball, a yoga ball, just like this, and we're gonna put it up against a wall. And we need to make sure that we have our knees directly underneath our hips and our hands shoulder width apart directly underneath our shoulders. And what we're gonna do here is really get some rounding in the back to open up the back and expand the back and stretch out those back muscles. We're going to initiate this by exhaling through our mouth and reaching through the floor, keeping our elbows very, very slightly bent. That's going to prevent excessive tension from going through our system, but we're gonna really get some rounding through here and our low back. As we exhale, we're gonna push our hips back into that ball. That's gonna engage our lower abs. Get a full, long, soft 8 to 10 second exhale. As you feel those side abs and deep lower abs engage, inhale through your nose, maintaining that, you're gonna feel your back really open up. Exhale, push back into that ball. and you're gonna keep feeling more and more abs. This is gonna be pretty challenging, but you're gonna feel a lot of opening up in here. And that's what we're looking for here. So to recap, exhale, push about 5 to 6 out of 10, and you're gonna feel those lower abs engage. Hold that tension as you inhale through your nose, nice and soft, silent inhale. You're gonna feel all this open up. A couple of important notes here is that people often do and will present with differences from side to side. So for some people, they'll have more tightness on the front side of the rib cage than the back, and vice versa on the other side. And you can address these sides differently. And most people do have some degree of asymmetry. So if you want to learn more about that, you can check out a deep dive piece of content I have on that I will link down below in the description.